Welcome in to another episode of Betting the Pitch with your host, real_G Warner, on Instagram, Patreon, and Twitter, of course. This is the Matchday number 4 edition of Champions League. Basically, flip the home field matchup of everyone play the same games in Matchday 3 as we get ready for the second half of group stage play and get ready towards, hopefully, a cool knockout round. I'm going to go through Tuesday and Wednesday cards. Going to do Europa League, Europa Conference League on Thursday, most likely, or preparing for Thursday. Probably do that Wednesday night. But let's get into it. If you're not a member of my Patreon yet, check it out, patreon.com. So that's a real_G Warner, perfect spot to get in on a 36 unit in the positive direction NCAA basketball season from last year. We'll be posting all my plays, all my leans, all my write-ups, everything you could ever want, probably, and then some, probably more than you want. But check it out, patreon.com, just a real_G Warner, see where you can get all my information. And if you're listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, please hit subscribe. If you're on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, please leave a 5-star review. It'd be huge to get me up the search rankings. To address some other episodes, we're basically making the Betting the Pitch podcast network now. Don't feel like changing the name. So we got college basketball stuff potentially. I think every Wednesday night we're recording with my good friend Ben. We're doing, it's called the Need for Seeds podcast. Plus we got the NFL edition of Betting the Pitch. We haven't come up with a better name, with my buddy Andrew Schnicker after a little bit of a time off because I went to Europe and then he got pretty sick. We will be back tomorrow night for another episode of the NFL, trying to get through what for me was a great weekend last weekend and try to get into some more winners and early in the week too. So you know where we're going to head before Sunday and Monday and all that sort of stuff comes up. But all lines quoted in this podcast are courtesy of BetOnline.ag. There is a link in there in the podcast description for a 50% bonus if you sign up there, or what you might want to check out for a first-time depositor at sportsbetting.ag. You can get double the money. Pretty much you deposit $100, you get 100 matched by sportsbetting.ag. So check that out. Both those links are in the podcast description wherever you're listening, on Spotify, on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, on Twitter. I don't know if it's in there, but everywhere else it should be. So check that out. And without further ado, let's get into it. And let's start with the first matchup on Tuesday afternoon here in the United States. Shakhtar Donetsk hosting Barcelona. Currently Shakhtar a 1 3/4 goal underdog at home. Juice is split both ways. Over under is 3 1/4. Juiced a little bit to under. I think my biggest interest here is to that under 3 1/4. I don't love backing Shakhtar Donetsk playing in Leverkusen, Germany, I believe, or the Leverkusen Stadium. I'm not sure what the town name is. Might be the same. Might be Leverkusen. But anyway, it's not a home court advantage, home field advantage, home pitch advantage, whatever we're calling it. I don't know necessarily how that impacts Barcelona, though they have kind of been playing away from home this whole season as well, outside the Camp Nou. But it doesn't really make me feel that great about Shakhtar Donetsk, though they're certainly a huge team in the Ukrainian league and a team that have more fighters than you could ever expect. I feel like even though they're playing outside Ukraine, they should get a really good effort, and this is Shakhtar's best chance to get a really big scalp for their club and for potentially a win here, and then maybe they take off and end up getting outside of the group stage. I'm not so worried about where teams are in the group just yet. I think for the next matchup, I probably will look to that for Matchday 5 because it's a little bit more clear at this point. But Barcelona coming off a really tough match on the road at Real Sociedad this weekend. You know, it's going to be tough for them to follow it up and continue to win. And this price on the road, though it's more of like a neutral site, I guess, if anything. But I think if you're not a Barcelona fan, you're probably rooting for Shakhtar. I think my biggest interest here is that under 3 1/4. Anything above 3, I'm looking a lot more closely at, just especially in this competition, because I don't really think that there's a lot to really see, and I feel like it's really hard to find a lot of goals against some of the best clubs in the world, whether they're from the Ukraine or not. Other matchup that's in the early window is Borussia Dortmund hosting Newcastle United, currently pick 'em right now with more juice on Newcastle on the road, a little bit surprisingly to me. Over under is 2 3/4. Juice is split both ways. Borussia Dortmund went to Newcastle and got a 1-0 win. Pretty surprising based on how they played this year and really how Newcastle has really dominated their home stretch. It's very possible. And I think in a basically rematch of what we saw just a couple weeks ago in the Matchday 3 Champions League edition, I wouldn't expect the same results here. So it's very possible that Newcastle can go into the Schwarzwaldstadion or whatever they're calling it now. No, Schwarzwald. Anyway, that's a different one, I think. But regardless, Signal Iduna Park, I guess I should remember because I went there. But regardless, I'm interested in Dortmund. I got to say, they had a huge fight back after a really slow start at Eintracht Frankfurt a couple weekends ago. Played a ton of matches, though, as did Newcastle. So it's really hard to even, I guess, based on form, just because who knows who's healthy and available for this one, because there's a lot of matches coming up or that have been played and will continue to be played until we get to that next international window, which I think is next week. But my interest here, I played under in the reverse fixture, and I'm interested in under here as well. 1-0 final was pretty easy for an under 3, I think it was. But here we got 2 3/4, not as high, and certainly is a number I'll be looking out for and potentially waiting for. But ultimately, I got to say, I'm also interested in as a home underdog. I want to see if they get to plus money or even close a quarter goal underdog. I doubt that happens, but you never know, especially considering how much English money is out there pushing these lines around. Moving to the late window, AC Milan hosts PSG as I wear my Christian Pulisic jersey. Need them to get off the bottom of the table and do it quickly, as I think most of the Milan crowd will do at San Siro. I was pretty disappointed in AC Milan's crowd when I went to the Juventus match they played at home. My first of the long Euro trip. Was way more impressed for Inter in the Champions League match against who was it? Against Salzburg, where they're playing again here on Wednesday. But Milan, they have to do it here, and they're a quarter goal underdog at home, a little bit more juice. Over unders 2 3/4, juice pretty heavily to under. I'm not sure what to really take from Milan, because the matches I went to, they took a red card in the first half, which changed things significantly, but really didn't do much against Juventus, who were down some players and ultimately were starting a front line that was not anywhere near what they'd want to on a regular basis. And then I saw them at Napoli, actually, on the road that next weekend, and took a 2-0 lead into halftime and really fell apart against a Napoli side that have not been very good this year and have had a lot of questions about their manager. Go figure. I mean, hard to see why that occurred. PSG handled them pretty well at the Parc des Princes and Paris last time out. So if you're backing Milan here, you're certainly, I guess, trusting who they could be rather than who they've been. Which is a pretty big question, because they haven't really delivered on any sort of expectations. I think I like the home dog here, so I'm adding Milan getting a quarter of a goal to my list. And I guess I like under 2, because I feel like if Milan are going to hang in this game, it's probably going to be a low scoring match, because PSG, I mean, they have, after a slow start to the season, they brought in a lot of new talent after really right as the window was closing. So it kind of took them a little while to get started used to playing together. They're not really a defensive side, though. If you can see their lineup with getting goals from the midfield, plus Kylian Mbappe, and then Dembele as well. It's just like there's so much talent everywhere. Gonzalo Ramos is the third mentioned name. Lee Kang-in is an incredible player who hasn't been playing much either. There's so much firepower for PSG, and that's one thing that does scare me significantly. Though I do like Milan at home, where a draw will ultimately profit half your bet. Manchester City then hosts Young Boys in what was a pretty tough matchup from what I watched in that first meeting. That was on the road for Man City, though, in Switzerland, so that might be different. And I think it was on artificial turf, if I'm not mistaken. Here, Manchester City, a 2 3/4 goal favorite, juiced to split both ways, then over-unders 3.5, juiced a little bit to over. I would expect this one, if you want to get involved with Young Boys, you probably want to play under 3.5, not expecting them to score. 2 3/4 is a gigantic number, and especially when you see the total is only 3.5, just 3/4 of a goal higher. I don't know that I really want to play Young Boys on the road and hope that they hang around, though. So that's probably one that I can actually move on from. Lazio then hosts Feyenoord. Currently, Lazio at Pick'em right now at home. A little bit more juice on them. Over-unders 2 3/4, a little bit juice to over. This was, to me, a number. I nearly played Lazio on the road, as I think they were a half a goal underdog at Feyenoord in Rotterdam, where Dutch crowds, always put up and always show up, and they're awesome. Here it's a little different, though. Feyenoord have to go on the road. That won't be as easy. From a Lazio point of view, though, they have had a really tough start to the season. Doesn't really look like anything's changing. They got a miracle win with a late penalty from Ciro Immobile, and then kind of didn't do so well on Friday. But I guess got a little bit more rest playing a Friday night match, and being fortunate to get a team that just played on Tuesday in the Coppa Italia, but weren't able to do anything, lost the match, and lost their heads a lot for most of it. There's not much for me to do at Pick'em, but I think, and honestly, the 2 3/4 total seems very high to me. Maybe that's potentially expecting Feyenoord just not to really play the same caliber of defense. And maybe that they will score on the same type of level. I can't imagine that. It's a pick 'em right here. So I feel like there's a very good chance this one doesn't see many goals. And it's currently juiced a little bit more to over. So I'm going to look to see if that 3 ends up popping before kickoff. Next, we'll go to Crvenvezda at hosting RB Leipzig. That's Red Star Belgrade, a 1-goal underdog at home. Over under is 3. Just pretty heavily over. Leipzig, who've been crushing some teams and ultimately playing really well in a lot of different ways. They now go on the road as a big favorite, have to win by multiple goals. Single goal win on the road will push, and that I think will be valuable to a lot of Red Star Belgrade backers. I think I'm more interested myself in Crvenvezda under 3. I think it's going to be a tough situation for Leipzig. They've got plenty of focuses on the DFB Pokal, plus also the Bundesliga, and I think this is going to be tough for them to go hammer Crvenvezda on the road. I think they're going to be a pretty good situation to set up in some counterattacking type of style. They've been worse on the road over the years, certainly, but probably because they've been so dominant at home. But I think it's going to be hard for them to win this going away. 3-0 victory still is a push on the total. Wouldn't cover the Crvenvezda side. I don't really expect Crvenvezda to score much here. I think they're going to try to defend as much as they can until this final whistle blows. Next, we'll go to Atletico Madrid hosting Celtic. Currently, Atleti, a 1.5 goal favorite, a little bit more juice at home. Over under is 3, juice way to under. Atleti have been great at home, and they get one of the worst teams in Champions League to visit. Celtic just haven't really been, in my opinion, very competitive in Europe, but maybe been better in this Champions League this season for whatever reason. Couldn't hold on to a victory against Atleti in the reverse fixture that just happened a couple of weeks ago. But they're going to go on the road. They're going to try to keep this as low scoring as possible. We have a 3 here. It's really tempting to get all these pushes if the game ends 3, because I do expect these matches to end and to be a lot closer than I think people are expecting. So that'll be my lean for this one, is under 3. But I am taking it very seriously how well Atleti have been playing, and I'm not sure I really want to tempt fate too much there. Next, we'll go to FC Porto hosting Antwerp. Currently, Porto, a 1.5 goal favorite with all the juice on Antwerp on the road. Over unders 2 3/4, split juice both ways. It feels like a big total again here. I mean, I guess Champions League is certainly an overbetter's dream, it seems, based on where they're putting these prices. But I don't consider Porto as a serious offensive side. They're good and look like they're going to get through this group alongside Barcelona. But Antwerp, they're, a Belgian side that will be, I think, on the road going in there to try to make this a 0-0. And that's really helpful. And probably is why every total on this board is 3. And this one's only 2 3/4, but that's still really high and asks a lot, and probably asks for Antwerp to actually contribute to the goal scoring here. And I'm not sure that they will. So Porto are interested in me getting that or giving a 1.5 goals. That's probably what I'd like more than anything, as my nose is running, unfortunately, for those of you who are watching on video. But from where I'm sitting with this one, I think under 2 3/4 is interesting. So pretty much put me down on the list for a lot of unders here. I guess I do like Milan, and certainly I do like Dortmund at Pick'em at home, but I do think I want a little bit more in terms of the total there. I think ultimately Lazio have struggled so much. Could you? Of course, the Apple Watch wants to get involved. I just feel that Lazio have really struggled offensively for a lot of this season, and they seem like one of those teams that will make it really tough for Feyenoord on the road, who should have a pretty different performance than they did at home in that first matchup. So I'll make Feyenoord under 2 3/4 my best bet for Tuesday, and we'll of course revisit that and see if it's going to be the ultimate best bet. End of show on the ultimate best bet portion. So moving to Wednesday, Napoli hosts Union Berlin. Napoli a 1.25 goal favorite at home, a little bit more juice on Union. On the road, over there's 2.75, juice very heavily to under here, and there's good reason for that, because this last meeting could have been goalless. I think Napoli, supposedly in the city, I was not there yet, but I guess they shoot off fireworks every time Napoli scores, so that's pretty cool. But I'm not sure they're going to be doing a lot here, because Union, I mean, have had the worst start to a Bundesliga campaign in their club's history. And that includes losing all their Champions League matches so far. I don't know necessarily. I mean, they haven't had this is their first time in Champions League. Really struggled in Europe the last couple seasons, though, to be frank. And they seem they're out of their element. They've tried to change who they are and brought in some good attacking talent. But even in this type of level of this competition, I don't think that they would have been able to squeeze out 0-0s and really get through either. So, and I don't know that it's hurt them too much here in this competition, but nothing has gone well. And I think they're going to go and realize that this is a good practice for them on the road at Napoli, which really wasn't the most intimidating environment, though I was wearing Maradona gear. So it's possible that people were nice to me. But I don't know necessarily if I think that Union Berlin are gonna. I don't know if they're gonna be able to score. I think Napoli's defense has certainly got some holes in it, to say the least. But I think Union are going to defend like heck, and they're going to give a ton of effort. That's one thing I don't think you can question about Union Berlin. Plus, Mikadier has been suspended likely for Bundesliga matches, should be playing in this one. He was an important miss due to injury for a lot of the season so far. That's my interest in this one, is Union Berlin under 2.75. So it's very juiced. 2.5 doesn't change my mind too much, though, because I do think goalless is really in play. Next, we'll go to Real Sociedad hosting Benfica. Real Sociedad, a 0.5 goal favorite at home, a little bit more juice. Over unders 2.25, juice all the way to over. I'm really disappointed my cell phone service didn't work outside San Siro for some godforsaken reason, leaving the Champions League match against Salzburg, and I wasn't able to get in a 4-0 slate, unfortunately, of Champions League bets last weekend, or last 2 weeks ago, whenever this last match day was, match day 3 of Champions League. Sociedad were going to be one of the teams I backed, and I've been really backing them for a lot of the season. I have a future on them to finish above Sevilla in La Liga play, which is off to a great start, and then also have them to advance out of this group. They might win it. They could certainly get past Inter. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them for going and getting a draw or even winning on the road at the San Siro, the last match day of Champions League group stage play. Benfica has been really disappointing, and this is a big match for them. And this is one of those where maybe this is Benfica's time to really go for it, which I don't think will work out for them. And I do think that will complicate things with the total, but seeing under 2.25, yes, it's even money right now. Probably will close 2.5, but still, that's a pretty low price, to say the least. And I think it's telling, because I don't think there's a lot to be expected from this matchup. Sociedad have been great defensively, despite not really being a defensive team. I think they're sometimes limited in scoring as well. So they've done a little bit better than that at times, but my interest here is under 2.25. Shouldn't surprise anyone based on this whole podcast so far. Next, go to Bayern München hosting Galatasaray. Only a 2-goal favorite, which feels a little cheap for Bayern München at this point. Over under 3.75, choose all the way to over. And I have no interest in under here. I'm not interested in playing Bayern unders until they're in knockout round stage play group, and they are in a situation where under seems obvious. It certainly doesn't here. Galatasaray has some big names. I don't know how much they're going to threaten the Bayern München goal, but on the road, they're going to go in there and try their best to defend for a while. But then I think the dam will break, the levees will break, and the flooding will begin. And we'll see if Bayern can get 8 like they did fairly recently. Next, we'll go to FC Copenhagen hosting Manchester United, currently Copenhagen, a 3/4 goal underdog at home. Over under is, let's see, I just lost it. Over under is 2.75. And from this last matchup, saved at the death with a Onana penalty save, not where Manchester United will want to be, and really they've been so bad so far this competition, this entire season. I'm a believer in the Copenhagen defense, especially at home. I'm really disappointed I didn't get an under in while I was waiting for the train to get out of San Siro, but I guess you win some, you learn, and lose some, or lose the ability to win a bet because you can't connect to the internet. But Copenhagen, I think they hang in here. Under 2.75 is very interesting to me. Next, go to Arsenal Sevilla. Arsenal 1.5 goal favorite at home with more of the juice. Over under is 3, juiced all the way to over. Might see a 3.25 before this kicks off. I think we've seen Sevilla really a lot of this season, as soon as really as recently as Sergio Ramos arrived. Very solid defense that hangs low defensive low block and will try their best to keep you out. Haven't seen much in the Sevilla offense unless they're playing weaker teams in La Liga, and still really haven't seen a ton of that either. Arsenal, I'm just not really a full believer in. I haven't really pulled the trigger betting against them enough yet, I don't think. But I think Sevilla go in and having a push on 3, I think is very valuable. And especially that we might get a match that lands 3. If this ends up climbing to 3.25, that if it might land 3, but you still get paid at least half of a bet if you play under 3.25. So that's my interest in this one. I think it's a little bit backing Sevilla as a, hopefully I didn't just lose all my internet. I don't think so. Anyway, I don't know that I want to back Sevilla as a side here, but I do like them keeping this close. And so I guess an under 3 there would technically be backing them in a certain way. PSV Eindhoven then hosts Racing Club de Lens, and currently Eindhoven a 3/4 goal favorite at home with most of the juice over. There's 2 3/4 juice all the way to over. Like under here, I mean, I'm gonna have to really whittle down some of these unders to say the least. But Eindhoven are going to play really well at home, but haven't really shown a lot in this competition. I've been pretty disappointed. Probably one of the more disappointing teams in this competition so far, besides maybe AC Milan, who I'm also wearing, but I don't have any PSV Eindhoven gear. So Lens on the other side, they had a really slow start to the league on this season, have turned around, but then had a pretty poor result recently as well. Didn't do great against this weekend on the road at Lorient. As a big favorite on the road, and now they got to go and face a really tough Dutch side and Dutch crowd as well. I think Wolves have kind of scaled back their front-footed, we're going all-out attack ways because they're not the same team. They're not as strong as they were in the past. Lost their most important player to Saudi Arabia this summer, so things have changed there for a little bit, but I do like the idea of backing them, especially if this climbs 3. I think I want to see that happen because I do think the idea and the strategy for Wolves is they still want to attack, but I don't think they're going to be able to do that. I think they're going to be forced to be more pragmatic, especially here on the road in a really tough place to play. Next, go to Real Madrid hosting Sporting Braga, and then we have one more match after this one. Real Madrid a 1 3/4 goal favorite with all the juice. Over under is 3.5, and it's split juice right now, -110 both ways. Real Madrid are not impressive to me. They win matches at the end all the time, and that's eventually going to stop. They were kind of hanging on for dear life against Sporting Braga on the road in Portugal last time this happened. I don't know that necessarily changes and becomes a blowout just because Real Madrid are at home. But I think if you want to back Sporting Braga, you can wait to see if you get a 2 that will show up. I don't have that just yet, but it might get there. I mean, they did close a 1.25 underdog on the at home to Real Madrid. Easy for me to say. But I think, again, I'm more interested in that under 3.5 because I think Sporting Braga are going to make this a really low scoring game. They're going to try their best to keep Real Madrid out. They might not be great at it and probably lose this match, but I think that's my biggest interest in this one. And last but not least, we'll go to Red Bull Salzburg hosting Inter, a match I went to a couple Tuesdays ago, I think it was. And it was an awesome match. And Salzburg were honestly controlling the first 20 minutes of the match and then conceded and then really tried to get back in the match. Inter got another goal and then really tried to keep going and get back into it and never ended up scoring, though they looked like they had the ability, or I think they did score actually. So lost 2-1. Red Bull Salzburg at home, a 1-goal underdog with all the juice right now. Over under is 2 3/4, just a little bit to under. I think Inter are one of the scariest teams for me to fade. I've learned the hard way betting against them, though a lot of that was when Lukaku was in town. I think from this point of view or where I sit now, it's just, I don't know that they're necessarily as strong or they even will be as good as they were last season, making it to the Champions League final and really playing Manchester City in a way that they could have won that match if they had just executed a little bit better, didn't concede so late. But I think Salzburg, they're going to try to be on the front foot, but they sold a ton of players this summer and aren't really the strongest version of them back when Okafor and Adeyemi and all those players were there way back when, but they're going to grow into a really good team. Eventually, all these players will move on to bigger clubs somewhere else. And I think they could make this a really tough matchup for Inter Milan. So I'm interested in Salzburg getting that 1 goal at home. I think it does make me a little bit more interested if I can get a 3 on the total to play under. But I think Salzburg, the side, is really the one I'd want here. That's Salzburg +1. So we made it to the end of the show. It's brief. And I'm also trying to watch the opener, my first college basketball bet of the season, the USC Trojans. Hopefully Fight On can get off to a good start and get us off to a good start, as I'm hoping to try to win at least 37 units so I can say I improved on last season's pregame total. So we'll see how that goes. But it's time for the ultimate best bet. Again, if you're not a Patreon or patron yet, check out patreon.com. So it's the real_G Warner. Best spot to get all my plays, leans, everything across all the sports, write-ups, and everything I'm putting together as well. And then if you are listening on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, a 5-star review would be huge. Get me up the search rankings, get more viewers, more ability to advertise, or make this closer to a real job for me. And the more content I'll put out there, as I'm pretty much, you can probably hear my voice. I barely sleep now as it is. And a lot of that's content, but I guess trying to live my life normally as well. And then let's see, anything else? I guess look out for the NFL podcast with Andrew Schnicker coming out tomorrow night. That will be back after a 2-week hiatus. Sorry about that, but schedules and sicknesses got involved. I will power through that, though. I promise you that. And then I think the next one is also check out for Need for Seeds. New podcast coming out, episode 2. Will be out Wednesday night, probably, or Thursday morning, depending on when that actually gets posted. So check out or stay out, get ready for that one. And I guess without further ado, it's time for, I guess I didn't give you my best bet from Wednesday, but I guess I could probably do that live on the other one. So let's get into it. This is the real_G Warner. This is Betting the Pitch Champions League Matchday 4 edition, giving an ultimate best bet on this episode. Make sure you follow me on Patreon, on Twitter, on Instagram, the real_G Warner. So for Tuesday, I'm giving out Feyenoord under 2 3/4 goals as my best bet. And then on Wednesday, I really like the FC Copenhagen under 2 3/4 against Manchester United. And for the ultimate best bet on this episode, I'm going to go with that Wednesday bet. FC Copenhagen at 2 3/4 goal under is what I'm playing here at home against Manchester United. Manchester United have been really struggling this whole season. I think anyone who follows soccer would know that. And I don't think it's changing anytime soon. So why jump off the wagon until it bucks you off or until it falls over? It hasn't happened yet. I think Copenhagen at home are still going to play the defensive brand to try to do their best to try to win this 1-0. And if they do take a lead, they'll fight for heck, waste every second they can. I think really the goal is until they're 2-0 down, they're going to try to defend as much as they can. So take under 2 3/4 FC Copenhagen hosting Manchester United. And that'll do it for this episode of the Champions League Matchday 4 of Betting the Pitch. And I will be back for a Europa Conference League on Thursday, most likely, or Wednesday night into Thursday. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you all very soon.